This story was written by Brian Fredmore McGregor and is copyright 2021. No parts, whole or otherwise, are to be copied, duplicated, reproduced or transmitted in any way, form, type, manner or fashion without prior written permission from the sole author, myself, Brian Fredmore McGregor. This story is suitable for a mixed audience. The Cleaning Was Down to a Fine Art by Brian Fredmore McGregor, 2021. They were a cleaner, bucket and mop, and whilst he cleaned up, he never said much, more the thinker than anything else, although he always took great pride in whatever he chose to do, and within cleaning he found great enjoyment. He did his job then, wandered off home to further his art hobby, which he did in his spare time. He was satisfied with his day's work, as much as his boss was. This guy, the cleaner, had a way of crafting various arts, and he would construct great works, notably differently, but still very talented, nonetheless. He had the same uniform since he started work there, then aged 16 at the time, on his birthday too, as he recalls, and he simply fixed his uniform on the fly, as it got damaged and torn. He was a tea bloke too, and made everyone tea, and not to be popular, but rather to be nice. His tea, however, was not the best, and more often than not the plants got a sample of it. However, his heart was in the right place, and some say his tea was too. The cleaner blamed the tea bags, saying they were an inferior brand, and tea making was not art as such, as he could make that himself. He didn't just have the job of cleaning up the floors, but also ready for sale merchandise too. An all-rounder as such, so to speak. It was a Monday, and some new stock came in, and was placed for him to clean within this upmarket store as such, which is exactly what he planned to do. A piece of art came in, which was smudged the tiniest little bit, maybe a little bit more, which he thought was somewhat strange in that it shouldn't be really wet like that at all. He knew somewhat about portrait life art in that he had studied it and had many pieces of himself, albeit that some were stolen long ago, which sadly were never recovered. He also, as noted and had mentioned earlier, drew various types of arts, so was not a beginner, but rather more an advanced intermediate as such. He was asked to clean the art of all the residue, which he noted looked like someone had spilled spaghetti hoops on it. The boss just smiled back at him somewhat, and the strange thing was, he was probably right too. At any rate, the art was to be hoop free at some point today, tomato sauce too, whether he liked it or not, and so he started on the floor, as he usually did, and moved over to do dusting. The boss reminded him to clean the artwork and prepare it for sale. Many of the pieces really needed it and were obtained at discount or rather bargain pricings. Mitch said back to his boss, "I should hope too, there was more food in that picture than what was probably left on their plate." The boss said you can test that theory when you clean it, which they both laughed to. At that point, a man ran into the shop and said a great blunder had been made as such, which initially the cashier thought he meant as being the wrong change given. The man was soaked in sweat, almost like he had seen death at his door, and was very anxious. Well, he came across that way. As he explained, a family picture had been sold accidentally to them, as is, and that whilst not expensive, there was attachments to this piece in that it had belonged to an esteemed family member. The picture was described as having a little bit of a mess in it, and it was asked if it was notably like sauce or the like, to which the customer replied, "Yes, that's the piece," while snapping his fingers and swinging his arm across. At that point, it was indicated that the customer sold the piece to them in good faith, and that had spoken to him earlier, and he also had previous dealings, which went smoothly. The customer became quite irate, angry even, and erratic for the want of better words, and at that point then started shouting his mouth off rather dramatically. The customer then at this point started pointing and demanded to see the manager, who not only gave him his time but also introduced him to some officers who appeared quickly. The customer started arguing with everyone and swearing became the order of the day, to which he was taken away with his esteemed piece of live art and told not to return or offer further dealings with the company. He was taken back and interviewed, it's been said, and misfortune came this gentleman's way again, in that the piece became quite wet in the rain whilst he was taken away in the midst of a freak shower from that store. As it turned out, when they tried to help out and dry the piece of art, the paint came away rather quickly, that of a water-based paint, to then reveal a priceless piece of oil art by a noted 17th century artist, which found its way into the country, described as something else, imported as one thing, being something else, without tax or other fees being paid which should have been, as it appeared to be a simple piece of art by a quite unknown artist rather than a priceless piece, a portrait of brilliance, which it actually truly was. The gentleman was speechless, caught red-handed by what appeared tomato sauce and spaghetti, or some improperly dried and cleaned red paint, with some long bits or strands throughout, which had got stuck to these wet parts and added to further. The gentleman's dealings were greatly examined, and the whole scam was ended, which had, as it turns out, been going on internationally a long time. The cleaner later remarked to his boss that when the case appeared in the newspaper, though whilst he liked spaghetti hoops, the man's face was much redder than any accompanying sauce in any tin when he was caught, and even more priceless than the picture itself. They both chuckled away to that one, at which point the boss adds, he was going to have to go through some hoops to get that picture back. And as it turned out, he was caught out by something quite saucy, which ended that conversation with more loud laughter in the shop by both customers and staff alike. A Brian Fred Warren McGregor production, 2021.